Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Your Next Chapter podcast. This is Angela Raspis. Now, before we dive into the conversation with this week's lovely guest, I'd like to let you know that this particular episode is brought to you by my Flourish mentoring program. Now, if you've been looking to get some personalized advice and support and guidance as you expand into your next chapter business, then the Flourish program could be just what you're looking for. This is my most personalized support where you and I will be working one-on-one, where we can define that vision that you're looking to create in your next chapter business, and then work on both sides of the coin. Now, by that I mean we have a really, really good look at your confidence and your mindset, because as you probably know if you've been in my community for a while, I absolutely believe that owning your value and your worth is essential as a foundation before we start building the marketing strategy on top that will actually get you in touch with your most aligned clients. And so that's where we always begin with these particular sessions. You and I will be workshopping together and then be having regular sessions where we pull all the pieces together to make your business flourish. I've often found that having a sounding board, having someone beside you who can look at your business with a fresh pair of eyes is one of the ways of breaking through to the next level. It's an investment in you and your business, and I really encourage you to take a look at how this program works if it feels that you're at the stage where those extra eyes and heart could certainly help. So to have a look at Flourish, you simply go to angelaraspis.com/flourish and you'll read all the details there. I'd love to be your guide on this next chapter journey. And now let's talk about my guest for this week. Her name is Brenda Tsiaousis, and Brenda, I guess the best way to describe her is immensely courageous. Now you'll hear all about Brenda's story in this wholehearted conversation, but just to give you the highlights, Brenda arrived in Australia in 2009 with her family, having escaped, and that's probably the best word to use, South Africa, and what was not a very pleasant situation and living conditions there at the time. But Brenda, with using that tremendous courage with her husband, shifted her young family to the other side of the world. Now, Brenda had an incredible first chapter of corporate career success, but when she arrived in Tasmania, that all had to change. She really hit this stage where the need to reinvent, the need to have what we dubbed the Phoenix moment was really, really crucial. Brenda realized and knew for sure that she did not want to go back to that corporate career she'd had in the past, but she found herself between the trapezes. I'm not that person any longer, but who am I now? If you've had that feeling of wanting to redefine yourself, of being known for one thing, but now the world around you or your responsibilities or your family, there's been a big change in your life and now you need to look at stepping into that next chapter. Well, finding the courage to explore what that looks like for you can be a really big thing. And so listening to the way that Brenda approached this and the self-belief that bubbled up from the inside and battled with that self-doubt that we all know is an absolutely inspiring story. And there's a little twist to this. Since Brenda and I actually recorded this particular episode, she's given us another awesome example of having that courage to bloom, which is the essence of her business. She decided, well, has known for quite some time, that speaking, sharing her story of coming full circle is such a core part of what she's here to do. So Brenda's actually just come back from speakers training over in Canada. She saw the particular program that was on offer and quite some time ago and knew that that's where she wanted to go. But again, it took tremendous courage to look inside, to find the resources, both financial and emotional, to leave her family again, take off to the other side of the world to a whole bunch of people she'd never met, and put herself out there on the stage to hone her speaking skills. I'm really pleased that I can call Brenda a good friend. We met through good old Facebook quite a few years ago. We were doing a business program together and we just connected. And to be honest, we haven't stopped talking since. But it's an absolute pleasure to be able to introduce Brenda to you, to share her story with you, and absolutely hope that those little gems of courage will come across. You'll soak them up and you too will find the courage to take the step into your next chapter in the way that Brenda has. I really hope you enjoy the episode. Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus, and I'm so delighted that you're here.
Well, to tell you the truth, my next chapter has probably been something that I didn't expect was going to be my next chapter. That's the strangest thing about it. When I arrived here in 2009, that's from South Africa to Australia, I thought I had it made. I was coming here, it was this big adventure that I'd been on. We'd left South Africa thinking we're going to be starting a new life, bring our kids to a safe place. And of course we chose Tasmania to live in, which is the most beautiful, beautiful place ever. I often consider it heaven because it is. It's like this little floating island just off the mainland of Australia. And I absolutely loved it. And when I arrived here, my first thought was, there is no way in hell that I'm going back to corporate. I don't know if you've ever been in corporate before, but I have. And to me, 25 plus years in corporate just did my head in. And even though I loved it, I just knew that this wasn't going to be something that I wanted to come back to while I was living in Tasmania. It was almost as if I'd been given a second chance, a chance to spend time with my children, a time to find out who I was, a time to stay at home for just a little while and transition slowly into the thing that I was going to do next. And I really didn't know what that thing was that I was going to do next. But if you're a high achiever and you're somebody who's been in corporate for a long time, or perhaps you're even just, you're just somebody who's got a lot of energy. And I know, Angela, you're somebody with heaps of energy. And so for me, it was like, all right, well, what do I do with my time? My kids, well, 2 of them were off to school. The other 2 were still young, and I had with them for a day or 2 in aftercare facilities. And then I sat at home. And I didn't really know what to do with myself. It was almost as if it was that feeling of, I'm not really a stay-at-home mum. I'm not very domesticated. I don't really enjoy doing the cleaning and the cooking and the packing lunch boxes and the collecting kids. I love my kids, don't get me wrong. But this is not something that I saw myself doing for an extended period of time. And I just knew that this wasn't going to last. I just knew that I had to find my way into doing something extra. And when you wake up one morning and sort of like, I don't know if this just happens when you're 40-something or whether it happens whether you're a lot younger, but you wake up one morning and I sat there on my bed just looking at my mirror, and suddenly I saw myself on the edge of this bed and I really didn't know who I was. I really felt like all my identity over the past 40-something years of my life had been tied up into what it was that I was doing. It was that I was the corporate chick. I was the high achiever. I was what was that thing called, nominated for South African Businesswoman of the Year. All of my identity was tied up into this person that was sitting there on this bed, yet I didn't know who she was. Suddenly I had no job. I was a stay-at-home mum, taking care of my children. I wanted more for my life. I wanted to be able to contribute financially to our income and just to life in general. And I had no idea what the next step was. I really didn't. And I felt almost like, well, Brenda, this is the golden opportunity to redefine who you are. This is like, who the heck are you? You have no status. You have no title. You've got no fancy cars. You have no magic, beautiful, Tuscan home on the banks of the river. You've got no support system. You are absolutely nobody. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what you can do. Nobody knows what you've achieved. And as a matter of fact, they don't really care. And I sat there that day just feeling like, wow. I can't really remember whether it was a sort of like a sinking feeling or a feeling of, gosh, this is an opportunity, but I knew that I had to do something. And it was that in that moment that I thought, well, let me just jump onto Google. Google has the answers. Absolutely. So if you, I often tell my husband, if it's like women are like Google. You can just ask us anything and we know the answer. And so I sat there just Googling work from home. And it was all these fill-out envelopes. It was these crazy sort of like network marketing schemes. And I just knew that wasn't something that I wanted to do. And then I found think it was an advertisement that popped up in front of me, and it was a coaching advertisement, and it was almost like, come along, come along, come along. And I thought, coaching, what is this? What does it mean? What is it? And so I did a bit more research over the next couple of weeks or so and realized that I really wanted to go and be coached. I wasn't thinking of starting a business. I just felt like I wanted to go and be coached more to help myself than to do anything else. And it was this coaching that was going to help me to find me. And so I enrolled for this program, flew over to Melbourne, thank heavens for supportive hubbies, and I enrolled in a coaching course. And the coaching course was a Cert 4 in Coaching, Advanced Diploma of Coaching with an NLP component to it. And I knew nothing. I mean, I really didn't know a thing. I didn't even know what coaching really was. All I knew that it sounded good. All I knew it sounded that it could help me to transition from where I was to where I wanted to go. And it would help me to find out who the heck I was right down at the core. I had worn a mask in my corporate career for 20-something years. That corporate identity was so attached to me that I was really struggling to put it down and to let it go and just to allow the person who I really wanted to be to come forth. And I think it was only after I did my coaching, I came home one day and I thought, well, I've been coached. Well, now what? Now what? And it was then that at that stage, my little business was born, and my little business was called The Lifestyle Strategist. And when I think of it now, I think to myself, oh, this is so lame, The Lifestyle Strategist. I had no lifestyle, come on, and it was like, okay. Let me just...
But isn't it interesting when you look back and you can see with what I often call the benefit of hindsight that we evolve. I mean, that was your first step out into a brave new world. That took, enormous confidence underneath to be able to say, yes, I'm going to back myself. I'm going to jump on another plane, shorter trip this time, take myself off to Melbourne. I'm going to explore this. My intuition is speaking to me. This is something that calls me.
Absolutely.
And that's a very big deal. It's a very big deal. Whether you're the lifestyle strategist today or not, which I know you're not, you've moved many, many, many steps past that. But that was the first chapter. That was the beginning of the new paragraph, and that's led you to where you are today.
It is. I mean, and it really was. And, when I look back at the Lifestyle Strategist, I'm actually so grateful and so thankful that I had that opportunity to step in unknowingly into what it was that I was doing. I think if I had sat and planned it all out, I probably wouldn't have done it. And the Lifestyle Strategist gave me the opportunity just to go out there and just to coach women and just to, well, at that stage it was men and women, and just to, really and truly play around with where I fit in, but not just that, also to start looking at who I was and what I really wanted to be, and identifying the things that were inside of me that I knew had to change to be able to create the person that I am today. Well, as you know, and as you've mentioned, obviously the Lifestyle Strategist doesn't exist anymore. I had this beautiful little website that I created and put up there, and somehow, somewhere along the line, it got hacked, and I never found out how to restore it. And so that actually helped me to transition into what I am now. And that is, I love to call myself the connector of dreams, or my clients have called me the connector of dreams. And that is me helping and doing what it is that I do now, and that is helping women with their confidence and their courage and to start their businesses online and aligning that heart with strategy. And I do this because I think I struggled. Angela, I mean, you've come with me right from the beginning. You've heard me, you've seen me, you've watched me, and there has been struggle some days. But in that struggle, I think so much character has been built and formed. One of the things that I know without a doubt is that the mask that was there has come off. It's like you slowly start slipping out of it because the new identity, the new person that you're becoming no longer fits that mask. And you realize that you can't hide behind it because it just doesn't serve you at all. And neither does it serve anybody who you work with. You've got to bring your full self to each and every conversation. You've got to bring that thing that makes you unique, whether it is your quirkiest self, your lack of humor self, whether it doesn't matter who you are, there is that uniqueness about you that people are attracted to you. And if it's hidden, behind this mask and you're trying to be something that you're not, do you know what? You can feel the disconnect. And that doesn't serve you, nor does it serve your clients.
No, that's completely true. I mean, that's a conversation that you and I have had many times, and I think it's a conversation that's out in the bigger environment as well, is that the necessity for us to take away those masks and let the true us be seen. And that in theory is a wonderful thing. But sometimes if we go back to when you were very first, landed in Australia and started to realize that, domestication was not going to be your future, doesn't do well in captivity. There's the sign on the cage. And it was time to start looking somewhere new. And sometimes the masks that we have protect us and we're not quite sure. Well, number one, I think sometimes we're not even aware that we're wearing a mask. I've got a strong belief that as we move into our 40s, and that's why my whole market caters to women in their 40s and beyond who are looking to move into their next chapter. And when we get to here, we've spent often a whole lifetime of looking after other people. And that we can be wearing the mask of conformity or the mask of caring, and they're not always bad masks. But when we actually have that time and space or a new opportunity or a whole new world, which is what you experienced, it's like, well, who am I without this mask? This is the outfit, or this is the clothing that I've worn for so long. If this is taken away from me, the naked emotion of who am I and where do I go next? As you experience, I'm no longer corporate woman. So who am I? And that journey into discovering who the new you is, I don't call it a midlife crisis, it's a midlife expansion. I think that's a far more empowering way of looking at it. But that, you Googled it. That's where you started. Okay, work from home. I know that I need to do more than this. But that's a big step to take. So when you were making that choice to, okay, I'm going to explore this coaching thing, what sort of emotions were running through you at that stage?
It's been some time now. I mean, it's been almost 8 years since I've moved. But I think in the beginning, first of all, I was a little afraid. It was like, gosh, I'd heard, things about Australia long before I even arrived in Australia. And one of the things that I'd heard was the tall poppy syndrome. And knowing my personality, which is something that's sort of like a little out there at certain stages as well, and really wanting to achieve and do well in the new area that I was in, I was also afraid of putting my neck out. I was also afraid of, and when I say putting my neck out, it was because at that stage I didn't really know who, I didn't really understand the qualities that I had. I didn't really understand the strengths that I had at that specific stage. And so I just thought, wow, I've got to, as you say, got to keep this mask on because this mask is what keeps me safe. Behind corporate mask was a strong, competent, independent woman able to do stuff. But I also realized that strong, competent, independent woman could be quite forceful and quite intimidating and quite out there and quite opinionated, at certain stages. And so I had to find this happy balance. And while I was Googling all of this stuff, I think for me the biggest thing was I wasn't really thinking about a business at that stage. I was more trying to find more about myself. So Brenda, how does she think? How, what is this next step that she's going to be taking? This mask that I've got on, as you said, I probably didn't even realize that I had the mask on at that specific stage. All I knew that I was in a position that I really didn't quite know who I was at that stage and where I fit in. And it was only, I think, after I did my coaching, long after my coaching, and you must even know that during that coaching, all of that stuff does come up, and it was almost as if I wasn't ready to deal with any of that stuff yet. I knew that I was becoming more aware. The awareness frightened me, but it also gave me this intense feeling of excitement of there is something new looming on the horizon. There is something new that's in front of me. There's this breakthrough that could potentially happen, and I have no idea what it is yet. I have no idea who the person is that I need to be. I don't even know who I need to be able to step into that yet. And I think it was more along the lines of trying to clarify, okay, getting real clarification as to, okay, well, how do I really want that to look? And for most women, I think that I can highly recommend going through a process of sitting down and really and truly looking into the future, sort of like envisioning where it is that they want to be, where it is, what does it look like for you, what does it feel like for you, who's around you at that specific stage, what is it that you're wanting to achieve, and allow those things to start bubbling up, because that is how you start gaining clarity as to, how to move forward. Because when you start getting clearer about who you as a person are and who you want to be and what it is that you really want for your life and for your children's life, you can start building on that. And I like to think of it in sort of like 3 steps, the clarification step, and that is really and truly allowing yourself just to dream. And it's to think, where would I like to go? Who do I see, in my future? Who can help me to get there? What does it actually look like? Is it a business? Is it staying at home? Because there is nothing wrong with staying at home and taking care of your children. Is it something that's going to satisfy me? And asking those questions to try and move from one step to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. And as you do this, one thing builds on another. And suddenly that thing that you've hidden inside you for such a long time, because you've just been doing your corporate mask thing, starts coming out and it starts blossoming. And that's exactly what happened to me. It was like suddenly I realized that there is so much more to me than what met the eye. There was so much more, and then I'd been sticking it away and hiding it away for such a long time, because that didn't have a space in corporate. It really didn't. But now I didn't have this corporate thing hanging over me anymore. And not to say that corporate's bad, and I still work with corporates. I'm just not in it as in employed by it anymore. It was almost like I now can breathe a bit easier. I can dream a bit more. I can uncover who I am, what makes me tick, my thought processes, the things that I don't like, the things that I even had to do but didn't like doing. I could now choose to, do I want to continue that? Or do I actually want to put it aside? Or wow, do you know what? As you know, I think you may have noticed as well that I started painting. Me painting. I never considered painting ever. Yet deep down inside me, I always had this urge to paint from a very young little girl. Always wanted to paint something. And one of the things that I know, I said to my husband before moving to Australia was, I'm going to get myself a canvas. And while I'm sitting at home, I'm going to go put my canvas out in the front garden and I'm going to paint. And that didn't happen. It didn't happen for a few years into my journey, but slowly those dreams that I had started coming alive. They started making themselves known. They started becoming, this is me, knock, 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 this is me. Did you know that you really and truly want to do this? And then saying yes to it.
That's such an important point, and it's been my experience both in my own life and also with the clients and the women that I've worked with, is that ability to actually hear, to listen and to hear what it is that you desire can only come when there is less noise around you. It can only come when you've cleared some space to actually be able to hear it. And, hearkening back to what we were saying before with all of that juggling and responsibilities that we may have had, most certainly have had earlier in our lives, when the space begins to clear a little bit, I think this has got a lot to do with this finding this balance point between reinvention and authenticity. Because reinventing ourselves when we have the opportunity often is a fact of actually coming home to those original desires, like you said there, the desire to paint, which was there since you were a little girl. But the opportunity for it to express itself hasn't come out until much later, when you've made the space to actually hear what your heart was yearning for. So I think when you were giving the examples of the clarity is important to ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want? I think that's an exercise we all need to go through, but it can be a big stumbling block. Well, I don't know what I want. I've spoken to a lot of people who've lost touch with what it is that lights them up with what it is that they actually desire. And so perhaps the place that we can start is, how do you want to feel? You know, you were making reference to that when you were looking through the maze of your own emotions. How do I want to feel? What's important to me? So we're really talking about values here, aren't we? Like, what
Yes.
are those core values that feel really as though they fit you? And so to me, it's a case of, as you did, looking at the what do I want, but more in a case of how do I want that to feel? You know, why is that important to me? What do I want to create for myself and my family? And it doesn't have to be, I think the reassurance we give here is that it doesn't have to be as specific as, I want to start a coaching business in this area offering these services at this time. Like, if we try and put ourselves into that, it's almost exchanging one straitjacket for another. So it's allowing that space for the desires to evolve. So deciding how we want to feel, and then not letting go of the how. You know, not having that strict, here's the pathway to the thing. Because if we let go of the how and allow a little of that evolving, as you've done, then you can find yourself as a lifestyle strategist one year, and then as you evolve, turn yourself into a painting connector of dreams 6 or 7 years later.
And doesn't that just sound amazing? It just does, doesn't it? You know, coming back to that, you know, taking it one step at a time and not really knowing what it is that you want initially. When I first started out, I heard of somebody called Michael Lossier, and he had a concept called the contrast frame, which I've adopted and really love as well. Because often you're quite right, you know, when you say that people don't really know what it is that they want. Many times, often when asked, you know, so what is it that you really want? We get stuck in that process because we haven't allowed ourselves to dream and use our imaginations and visualize and tap into, you know, what it is that we really, really, really want. We know what we don't want. You know, and if you had to ask somebody, they're more inclined to be able to say, well, this is what I don't want. You know, I don't want to be able to stay at home. I don't want to have to, you know, clean my home, you know, be the domesticated cleaner in my home all day long, you know, and that type of thing. So they can tell you exactly what it is that they don't want. And so Michael suggests that you take a piece of paper, which I really love, and draw a line right down the middle of it, and on the left-hand side to go and write down every single thing that you really don't want. How you don't want your life to look, you know. Maybe it is that I don't want to be working for a boss at the age of 40. It could be maybe I don't want to be making sandwiches for my kids at home. You know, it could be I don't want to feel unfulfilled. Whatever it is, you know, write that I don't want statement or on the left-hand side of the page, and write as many as you can, because this is just your brain opening up and just allowing yourself to write all the things and to actually bring up the things that aren't satisfying you at this stage. And, you know, when I say satisfying, it's those feeling things again. You don't feel like you want to do them. You don't feel like they fit you any longer. So just write down, I don't want things. The contrast then to this, okay, could possibly be that if I don't want to be doing this type of thing, or I don't want to do that, that the opposite could potentially be true. Now, it doesn't always work 100%, you know, because, you know, for example, I could say, I can't even come up with an example right now because I've done this exercise such a long time ago. But on the right-hand side of the page, you would then take the first point that you said I don't want it to and start looking at, well, let's reframe this. If I don't want this, what is it that I do want? And what it does is it just jars the brain slightly, and it allows you to start thinking about, well, if this isn't working for me, what could potentially work? And then not feeling pressured into suddenly making the change. And I think as a woman, we are, especially when you're women who are driven and you want to make things happen because you feel desperate to change, and you know that this transition is imminent. It's to give yourself the space to let it happen slowly over time, because we are inclined to sometimes try and push it all in to get and make it fit and make sure that we, you know, okay, well, this is it. Suddenly I've just realized what it is that I want to do. Now we've got to make it happen. And so we start striving and pushing and trying to fit the little square peg into the round hole. And it doesn't work. It really doesn't. You know, I can truly and honestly say that it has taken me, and I'm still in the process of evolving over a 7 to 8 year period. Now, some people may say, oh gosh, that's just terrible. That's too long. But I'm a firm believer of the fact that we are a work in progress. We never, ever, ever reach that state of perfection that we want to be. We don't ever get to be that full picture because, and I actually shared this with somebody the other day. We have these gaps that we have to close. And the gaps are, this is where we are right now. This is the space that we're in. And when we look back, there was where we were. And there's a gap in between where we were and where we are now. And that gap for me is 8 years. But during that 8-year period, I can look at some very, very lows in my life, and I can acknowledge some fantastic successes and highs in my life as well. But I'm no longer where I was because simply I started. I could still be where I was if I hadn't started, if I hadn't picked up my computer and Googled work from home, or make money from home or anything like that. I could still potentially be in that space. But I'm not. I'm where I am now. And slowly over an 8-year period, I've actually moved from where I was to where I am now, with some bumps and some...
There's always bumps. There's always bumps. There's detours. There's cul-de-sacs. There's dead ends. There's all sorts of things. But the key is just to keep moving. I think when you made the mention before about being a high achiever, and I think this is one of the things that can trip us up when we're moving into our next chapters. If we've got that background, that track record of making things happen, especially if we've got a corporate background, which a lot of the women who are in the next chapter community do, we put these self-imposed deadlines on ourselves of, well, it's all going to happen within the next 6 weeks, 3 hours and 27 minutes. I will be a success by then. And we can be quite brutal on ourselves if we don't perceive to be achieving or making the progress that we think we, inverted commas, highlight, underline, should. And that can be a really dangerous thing. I think you and I have had this conversation often, is that we can be our harshest critics. We can set our highest standards on ourselves than we would ever for another person. And actually the podcast episode number 48, Larissa Halls and Larissa's my own mindset coach, and she's a monthly guest now on the podcast. And the topic on that particular episode was, there's no timetable for success. And I think one of the things that we talked about was that we can be prone to comparison, looking at our trajectory and deciding that it's not as high or as fast or as thorough as somebody else's, and that can really cause us pain. Is that an experience that you've had, or people that you've worked with, where you've needed to sort of get out of that comparison trap and accept, as you were saying, that here I am, there's where I was, and the future could be anywhere out there. I'm never going to be finished, inverted commas. So having a bit of that kindness as you progress.
That is so true. And you know what I have? So I will be totally honest here, and this is me in my absolute rawness. I have been triggered so many times, and in the online space even more so than ever and than anywhere else. And I'll give you 2 specific examples without naming names or anything like that. But in terms of our own personal growth, I think for me, the biggest thing that has come up was the not good enough, really and truly. Being a high achiever, that not good enough was just never good enough. Just never good enough, which means that it would make me get down there and try and move forward at a pace, as you said, 15 hours, 24 minutes and 3 seconds, it has to be done. And if it isn't, it's not good enough, And I often look at how I bring up my children, and I try and be very sensitive to the fact that I don't want them to experience the same, because this obviously comes from me being brought up by somebody who's very strict and who had very high expectations of me. And if it wasn't done correctly, it was just never good enough. But taking that into the online space, where I see amazing, incredible women all day long, and some of them earning hundreds of thousands, I feel overwhelmed often. And I'll give you a good example. This morning, while I was brushing my teeth, as you do, that is when my creative juices start flowing, and I don't understand why. It's like I've got the toothpaste in the one hand, a mouthful of toothpaste. I can't speak into a recorder. I can't write anything, and my thoughts not flowing.
And that's when you need the lipstick on the mirror.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Just ridiculous, really. And this is it. And this morning I was just thinking, and suddenly one of the limiting beliefs that I didn't know I had. So as I mentioned, we're a work in progress. And as you're busy working on yourself and your mindset, these little things crop up and pop up, and they crop up so that you can deal with them and put something into place that can help you when it happens again, because ultimately these things happen again. And I was thinking about a few women, so I was looking for evidence of what success looks like in my mind. And for me, I was thinking, for some women, success may mean that they earn $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 a month, and they're happy with that. Other women earn $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a month, and they're happy with that. That's their definition of success. And suddenly I felt extremely triggered. And the trigger was that I'm not a $4,000 a month woman, but I'm terrified of becoming a $100,000 a month woman, because the woman who I see earning $100,000 a month are absolutely, and please forgive me if this is you in any way. This is not meant to, it's like, and this is it. And it was that they all have to be as skinny as anything, ripped, totally like have six packs almost, are, machines in the gym. They are people who, they just go for it and push themselves to the extreme. They're out there. The language that they used is almost like hustle, 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 go, 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 and all of these things. And through that, they attract their tribe and they make their money. And I thought, I don't want to be like that. That's not who I am. And yet I'm seeing so much more of it. And I thought, is this what I need to become? Is this who I need to become to achieve my $100,000 a month income? Because I want to be successful, but I want to be financially successful as well. So for me, a certain definition of my success is wanting to earn an above average income. And so it's like, okay, well then, if this is what's going on in my mind, I have started stacking up evidence of women of, okay, well, success means that you have to be totally ripped, have a six-pack, work 24/7, push yourself hard, hustle all day, be, dress absolutely impeccably, have all your marketing in place, every single design is there, your copy is straight off the cuff, and I'm thinking, no, I'm building up evidence of how I don't want to be, which means that I'm then going to start sabotaging myself, because that's what I'm thinking I need to be to achieve that goal. And so I got myself caught up in this whole loop of, no, that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be that type of person, but I don't believe that we have to be that type of person to achieve the success. And so I went out there and started looking for evidence of women who are doing it on their own, without having to conform to, to the standard, if I can put it that way, of what's seen online. Because in that as well, I started thinking, maybe this is just the showreel that I'm seeing. Maybe this is what they put out in the marketplace. But in reality, that isn't how it actually is. So for myself now, and it's an ongoing process, need to go back and say, I need to redefine my definition of success. And in doing that, I also need to find evidence that there are women who aren't like that, okay, that are achieving the measure of success that I would like. And while not comparing myself to them, then sit down and establish my way. So establish the way in which I want to do it, and a way in which fulfills me, and a way in which makes me feel good about what it is that I'm putting out there. Is it authentic? Is it in alignment with my own values, with my own strength? And am I congruent with who I see myself becoming? Does that make sense?
It does, because I was thinking as you were talking about that perspective of, well, to be successful, you've got to, I like that, have a six-pack and work really hard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll add to that, if I can put a little asterisk for my trigger point as well. And you don't really care about your clients. What you really care about is actually creating the income, because that's one of the beliefs that I've been holding, and you have to work really hard. I think my belief came a lot from growing up in New Zealand on a farm where my dad was a manual labourer. I mean, he shore sheep and he put up fences and that sort of thing. And I was very much given the perspective that to make money, you have to physically work very, very hard. And there was a definite suspicion of anybody who made money in different ways. Yeah, they weren't honest. There was a definite bit of deceit, or, pulling the wool, no pun intended, since he was a shearer, pulling the wool over someone's eyes. That's the way that you make money. They're not good people. And that's something I've certainly struggled with. But as you were talking, I was thinking exactly about the compare and contrast exercise that you were talking about earlier. What don't you like? Well, let's flip it. Let's use that as a guidance tool for what it is that you do like. And so here's some examples of people who have success and who have it in a way that doesn't fit myself, that doesn't feel in alignment with me. So let's flip that and find some great examples of people who do feel in alignment with me. I guess one of the people I think of straight away is Brené Brown. Hugely, ridiculously, redonkulously successful, but feels to me extremely authentic, very aligned with her values, and hasn't, in my belief, really changed. I've seen her speak a couple of times, and I felt like I could have invited her home for dinner and we'd chat, that sort of feeling of authenticity. So I think it's important, absolutely, for us to look for way showers. So people who are adopting and developing, success that feels like what we enjoy, because I believe that we've got to have a foundation for our journey. I mean, if you start any journey without any map at all, then you could end up walking in circles for a damn long time. Whereas if you've at least got a couple of way showers who can say, hey, put their arm around your shoulder and say, hey, try this way, try looking over there. You can still decide what your steps are going to look like, but at least you've been given like a gentle push in a certain direction. And I think that's what conjures up for me as you're talking, to find those examples of people who have success that feels good to you. They're a way shower. They're showing you the way that it can be done that aligns with you. And that's a really good starting point. I really believe that.
Absolutely. I like that. And I like to add on to that as well. I, have this concept of having sort of like on your hand, you have 5 people who really support you. And I would call them your personal board of advisors, basically. And these people are people who really and truly believe in you, who back you. And some of them could be just your support system, like a husband or a partner or a friend or somebody who's prepared to help you when the way does seem a little bit dark and dreary, or when you do stumble.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are plenty of those moments as well. But just like those moments, there are also the good moments. There are moments where you feel like you just know, you have that inner knowing inside of you that whatever it is that you're doing because this is what you've been called to do. And I know that that's true for me. I mean, I know without a doubt that I've been called to do this. And I think when you tap into that level of certainty that you're in the right space at exactly the right time, things become a lot easier. You allow yourself to move forward at your own pace, and you allow yourself to move forward with the help of people who you trust. I mean, your personal board of advisors need to be people who you really trust. It could be a coach or a mentor. It could be somebody who's much older than you, who's done their time in business or whatever it is that you may be looking at in, that can share their knowledge and their expertise with you. It could be somebody who's a lot younger than you that knows the tech stuff, because, I mean, come on, admit it. I mean, yeah, I'm close to 50. I'm turning 49 this year as well. I'm no tech boffin. I'm not even, sometimes in the beginning I used to say I was totally, a digital dingbat in terms of I had no idea how to do any of the stuff that I was meant to be doing. But slowly, with the help of people who are out there, who want to support, who want to collaborate, who want to assist you because they can see your dream and they know the value that you can offer. Not just that, they also believe in you as a person. When you surround yourself with those people, you can move forward one step at a time and build up the strength, build up the confidence, build up the courage to take just that next step. And it really is building a business one step at a time, those little tiny steps, instead of trying to run it out and then reaching the destination and sitting down and feeling like, oh, I've just failed, I'm a failure. Instead of doing that, just think of it, this is a journey. This is an experience every single day. Every day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to see what's going to unfold today. Yes, I'm going to plan it to a certain degree. I'm going to have clarity about certain things. I need to have certainty about myself, and there'll be days where I don't have that certainty, that I need to tap in and dig down really deep to get that certainty up and that confidence up and that courage up to take the next step. But if I just keep on moving forward one slow step at a time and enjoy the journey, do you know what? The goal no longer becomes that important. The end destination does not become important. The journey does. It's the journey where the fulfillment takes place. The journey is where the growth takes place. And I have this poem. It's called, I call it The Trapeze. And I think if you can actually Google it. But if you can't, what I'll do, Angela, is I'll actually just send the link to this little poem to you as well. And you're more than welcome to hook it up anywhere that you want to. But it's beautiful. It talks about us swinging on a trapeze and we're holding onto the one trapeze bar. And while we're swinging on this trapeze bar in our moment, we're actually seeing the next bar swinging towards us. That next bar is your next step. That bar, that trapeze bar that's coming towards you is the thing that you need to reach out and grab hold of to take you into wherever it is that you're going next. It could be your next chapter. It could be a business. It could be whatever it is for you. It could be that. But here's the thing, to grab hold of that bar, you really need to release the one that you're on. And that can be terrifying, absolutely terrifying, because as you let it go, so you need to grab onto the next bar and then swing with it. But there is a moment in time where you're actually in nothingness. You're in between bars. You've let go of the one that you're on and you haven't quite yet grabbed the one that's swinging towards you. So you're in this area of, as she calls it, nothingness. And it's in that nothingness that we can either get terrified and turn around and run back, try and grab hold of the bar behind us again, or fall down and hopefully trust and believe that there's a safety net to catch us, or we can experience the nothingness and know that it is in this space that we are in that the good is happening, that we are exactly where we need to be, that there is nothing to be afraid of. And even if we are a little afraid, there is somebody or something that is going to help us to grab hold of that bar. And after all, you have your little safety harness on you so that when you do reach out and you grab that bar, you can just keep on moving forward. And I love the analogy of this poem. It is one of my favorite poems because I often feel like I am in the nothingness,
I've joined you there, and I'm sure everyone who's listening is nodding. We've all been in that. I love the description, the nothingness place. And it can feel, I guess being in that place can feel confusing and confronting and scary and all sorts of things. But if we know there's a safety net there, and by safety net, I mean like a belief buddy, like the conversations you and I can have, or with your partner or somebody else who is going through something similar, and they know how important this is to you. If you know that there is at least, I'd like to think, one other person who is on this journey with you in some way, shape or form, then you can handle the nothingness. It's okay. It is scary, but you're going to come out the other side. And I think any of us that are stepping into our next chapters, even if it's into a business concept that we feel really confident about, there is still going to be those little spots of nothingness that are hiding around the corner for us, and we can handle them I think a couple of things, if we've got those belief buddies and that that board that you were talking about before, the board of people, the advisory board that's there for you. But I think it's also, you mentioned about that absolute certainty that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This will evolve, but the core of it, like in your case, connecting women with their dreams, that's always there. It's always there. It may manifest itself in different ways in terms of the services that you provide or the events that you're putting on, or the message that's in the blog post you're writing today, but the core of it never changes. So if you're really connected to that thing that lights you up, then you can deal with the no thing place, can't you?
Absolutely, definitely you can. And I think that we've got to realize that sometimes that thing, the calling in us, really tries to hide deep. And I explain it to my husband like this, because my husband has been, for the past 7 years, he's probably been saying, I wish I just knew what my purpose was. Or I wish I just knew what my purpose was. And I say to him, you do really know what it is. The fact is, we've got to ask ourselves the question, do we want to know what it is? Because if we do want to know what it is, it'll reveal itself to you. It really and truly will. And another thing is that sometimes we feel like if we do know what it is, that's even more terrifying than not knowing what it is. Because, because when we do know, we almost feel compelled to make something of it. We feel like we've got to, now that I know what it is, I need to do something about it. And it needn't be a scary thing. We often think that, and this is what happened to me. I used to think that my purpose was conquering the world, believe it or not. And it was like, I had to have this mission. Come on, Brenda, like the bigger, the better. And that is it. It is like my purpose was going to be this huge mission to change the world and all of that stuff. But it doesn't have to be a big thing. Your purpose can be as small or as big as what you choose it to be. And it was one thing that I had to get my head around, because it's not sometimes this huge, big project. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. And so, there is no need to be afraid of it. I think when you start asking the question, what is it? And you start knowing that you're ready for it, it's going to reveal itself. And then you still have the choice to decide, do I want to do something about it? Or am I quite happy just living the way I am? There is no right and there is no wrong. It is only what you choose to do.
And you don't need to, even if your thing did reveal itself to be as big as the world, you don't have to, eat that elephant today. You can just have one small bite of it. It can be the first step, that first step into the beginning of a story that can expand. But, we've often talked about how you can't steer a parked car. So you've got to start moving to actually then take control of the situation and be able to, move things in the way that you'd like them to move. But you can't do that when you're standing still thinking about it. So this really is about, I think, which is part of the core of you. It's the courage piece. And courage, ordinary courage is one of the things, or one of the ways that Brené Brown speaks about it, which is why I adore her work, that in a lot of ways society has hijacked the definition of courage, and we have associated with heroic acts. Well, to me, courage, and I'm sure to you as well, that courage doesn't have to be that big and bold and brassy and impressive. Courage can just be, I picked up the phone and returned that call to that potential client, or I made a decision about the colours for my logo, or I handed in my notice at the corporate role because it just doesn't make my heart sing anymore. That ordinary courage is what's a courageous act for you. And I think if you take notice and are aware of those small acts of courage that you take in everyday life, then you realize that you are, at the heart of you, a courageous person. And therefore you can start to take bigger steps into this next chapter and see what it does reveal for you. And I think true. And it's so important to have that connection with others, being in community where you recognize, I know one of the points that you've made often is that we're not alone. It doesn't matter what you're feeling, that fear or that excitement or anywhere in between, you're not alone. So many of us who are in our next chapters are having those same emotions. We're in this together, big time.
That is true. And just to add on one last thing to this as well, in terms of being courageous, One of the things that I have found is that often we do think we need to do the journey on our own. And we don't, because we have so many other people out there who've gone through what we're going through, and they have experience to share with us. One of the courageous little acts that I did not too long ago is to ask for help. Now you may be thinking, oh, come on, Brenda, how can that be something that you're afraid of? But I was. You know, asking for help doesn't come easily to some people. And sometimes you may be sitting there thinking, yes, I do want to build my business. I am ready for my next chapter. What is the next step there? But who do I ask? And I don't really want to ask for help, because asking for help might be perceived as a weakness. It may be perceived as something that, she's supposed to be the one that knows it all, and yet she's asking for help. And over the past few weeks, one of my dreams is to travel internationally, to speak on stages, to motivate and inspire people to be inspired. And I've known that I've wanted to do this since I was a very, very little girl. But I've also been taught to be very independent by my dad. I've also been taught never to ask for help, to always do things on your own, because guess what? The way you can do them, nobody else can do them better than you can, Brenda. And so these are beliefs that have come with me for a very, very long time. And I needed to pay a ticket because I'm flying to Canada to go to an event that's going to help me to further my speaking career. And I suddenly realized that I couldn't do this on my own, and I needed to ask for help. Well, for me, that was the moment where I had to dig deep down and find the courage to share my dream with other people, because my greatest fear is also that people will laugh at it, that I will be judged, that people will think, oh, come on, who the heck does she think she is? An international speaker? Come on. And I wasn't so afraid of people that I didn't know. I was afraid of people that I did know, my family, my mum, my brother, my close friends. I was afraid of them thinking, who the hell does she think she is? And with that, I thought, I can't put this out on social media, because if I do, they may see it, and then they're going to just think, well, who does she think she is? And I thought, you know what, Brenda, this is my dream. This is something, this is part of my purpose. This is the make or break it. This is where I now have to dig down deep and say, do you know what? You have a gift and a talent to share with the world. And this is something that you've got to open up with, and which means that it may be scary and it may be frightening to ask people to support you, to see your vision with you, and to believe in you enough so that they can help you to get there. And I did. I opened up and I said, I really need to get to Canada and I need to pay for a flight. And so I put out my services there at a price which was just a crazy offer in any case, knowing that I needed them to purchase these certain things to enable me to get to Canada. Was it easy for me to do? No, it wasn't. But I knew that I had to ask for help. And so, I can just, encourage each and everybody that's listening to this right now as well. If you're there and you're sitting and you're wondering, what's my next chapter all about? How do I do it? I'm afraid to ask for help. Consider the alternative of not asking for help. What is it? What will happen if you don't ask somebody to help you? And you don't have to be like me, go out there and post it all over social media, but you can connect with just that one person. You can connect with that belief buddy. You can connect with the husband or the partner who believes in you. You can connect with your best friend. You can connect with the woman who you may be involved with in a group that you belong to. It may be your coach or your mentor. Just ask them for help, because it's in that asking that, again, you do move just that one step closer to fulfilling that dream or that purpose or that goal, or seeing that next chapter that you're wanting to come closer to you. I hope that's been helpful.
That's hugely helpful. You know what I think you did, my darling? You let go of the trapeze.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was in the nothingness, oh my goodness.
But you grabbed the next one and you're on your way, and really that's the essence of this beautiful conversation that we've had today. It's about having the courage to let go of the trapeze, but before you do, having taken the time to actually envisage, what does that next trapeze look like? How do I want to feel? Where do I want to go? I don't have to get completely specific as to the how and exactly what it's going to look like, but let's just start with an inkling. let's have the courage to listen to our own hearts and to get that direction, just that next step, because you don't have to see the whole journey, you just have to see the next step, and having that desire to take that step. I think that's the essence of what we've been talking about today, to move closer to your dream. So thank you so much for sharing this perspective, and very much the personal insights, because I believe, I'm a big sharer. I believe when we share, it helps us process what's going on for us, but it also gives the opportunity to inspire somebody else to take their next step. That's what this podcast is all about. So Brenda, where can we find you if we want to come and connect with you, find out more about what's happening in your world and your services? Where can we find you online, website and that type of thing?
Well, the first place you can find me is obviously my favourite place where I normally hang out, my watering hole, as Angela would say, and that would be Facebook, because I think Facebook is just where we can find each other. So I'm on there under Brenda Tsiaousis. My Facebook group is also Business by Design for Women in Business. And that is, people think that it is all about business strategy, but it isn't. It's about heart. It's aligning heart with strategy. It really is. And it's building the business from the inside out, because that's what we do. We can't implement a strategy unless we're first being able to know who we are and align and uncover our true identities first, and removing the mask and taking that next step. My website is www.brendatsiaousis.com. I'll spell the Tsiaousis because it is quite difficult. It is Tsiaousis, and you're more than welcome to pop around and come and say hi to me there.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure that I pop those links in the show notes on the website, and you'll find that at angelaraspis.com, and we'll have all the information about Brenda so you can track her down online. So again, thank you, my darling. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
And you, dear listener, thank you for investing your time again listening to this episode of the Your Next Chapter podcast. A big part of what we spoke about today was the importance of having that community, that board around you of people who are moving in a similar direction as you. And that's one of the reasons why the Next Chapter community on Facebook exists. There's women that are taking those courageous steps into their next chapter, or even just starting to work out what might it look like? What does it mean to me? We've got women in there that are just taking that first step, and we have women in there that have leapt and are now firmly ensconced in their next chapter. And it's a wonderful, beautiful, supportive place to be. You can find that on Facebook by just Googling Your Next Chapter Community on Facebook. I'll also put a link in the show notes so you can find your way there again. And thank you again for taking the time. I hope you found that nugget of inspiration by listening with Brenda and myself today, and hearing that story of the journey that Brenda's taken from that lifestyle strategist right through to the connector of dreams that she is today. So I wonder what's going to unfold in your next chapter when you choose to let go of that trapeze and grasp that next one that's swinging towards you. So have a gorgeous day. This is Angela Raspis. I'll talk to you again really soon. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspis.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.